over the last 2 or 3 years, one of the things that we see is that a lot of with the pandemic setting in and the hybrid work culture being embraced by a lot of companies, what's typically happening is that the identity and access space is evolving. Going by the data, enough and more data has proved that India as a nation will be spending more after security services. India will be spending more on identity and access management solutions. Now, the typical challenge that will reside with the CISOs is having a set of applications which are tied to identity and access stack, but at the same time, there'll be certain applications which are not so important for them, which they'll not be tied, because let's accept the fact that tying every application to an identity stack, there's a commercial and technical cost that is associated with that. Given that, normally what we see that certain applications are left outside of that stack now, and that's where the vulnerabilities are lying. And that's what the threat actors are looking to exploit and intrude into the systems of the business. So that's where I feel that while there's a lot of evolution that is happening, but at the same time, it's not tying it 100% end-to-end with whatever applications the users are accessing. So let me just support my answer with some data points. So as per the latest research report that has come in, 81% of the breaches globally, this is a global number and India is not excluded out of that, right, are happening because of human errors, right? Out of that, 60 to 65% happen because of compromised credentials. So one side, we have the best of the technologies available, we have the best of the processes available, the security audits are happening, everything is happening, and still organizations are getting breached. And these are the organizations where we could give them the credit of being technically advanced, ahead of their times, investing a lot of dollars into their infrastructure, but at the same time, they are being breached. The reason is the compromised credentials. The threat actors are looking at these vulnerabilities and getting into the system. As I mentioned in my earlier point, we bring in a certain set of technologies, but it does not cover it end to end. And where the password compromise is a known fact, but more often than not, it's an ignored fact, only with an assumption that regular employee training and awareness will get them to have strong passwords. And look at the strength of the passwords. Today, users are creating passwords with their personal details, if not their own names, the spouse name, birth dates, car number, pet's name, everything. And they are changing the passwords around the same, there are different variations of the same password. One step further, look at the digital footprint of a user that is increasing. Today, as an individual, I have my personal footprint on my mobile. I am listening to music online, watching videos, ordering groceries, booking tickets, whether movie tickets, flight tickets, and every application gets me to create an account with a user ID and a password, right? So what I do is to be in my comfort zone. I don't have any wrong intent. I have the same password across. And further, what I do I carry the same behavior to my corporate world. So the access to my booking application, which could be very simple, which I barely use maybe twice a year, will be the same to the most critical, maybe the payroll application or maybe my CRM in my organization. And furthermore, if I'm given an access control to log in into once, probably that's the same password that opens the entire stack of other applications. So these are the vulnerabilities which, if I'm breached in my personal world, there's a high probability that the threat actor could follow me down to my workspace as well. It can be done, certainly it can be done, but the main thing is that whatever comes out of the security audit has to be adhered to. Look at the number of audits an organization has to go through. It has to go through internal audits, there are external audits, then there are audits done by their customers. If they are serving their customers will do an audit, and every time will bring in a different dimension to the compliance that they need to adhere to. Maybe even if it is in a process or if it's in a larger project. So the fact of the matter is, yes, these audits, this sanity check is extremely important. There is no doubt about that. But the findings of that have to be discussed with the board and taken it internally as a business problem and not just a CISO's problem. And that's where the gaps are coming, because businesses still do not want to look at such gaps as a business problem. And let's not forget, it's not one function or one department that gets breached. When the breach happens, it's an organization that gets breached, right? And the reputational loss, and moreover, something has to come out where people can associate some dollars with reputational damage. So to your point, yes, these audits help, but the gaps need to be plugged in. Whatever gaps are coming, those need to be plugged in, and those have to be monitored at a very regular level. Absolutely, because that's lined. Look at the way passwords, look at the way credentials are being shared in an organization. And I'm sure this is not a surprise to you. You'll find that passwords in an Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet having a password, and that's been shared across users. And that's where you have disgruntled employees, you have third-party contractors working, you have threat actors. So everybody is a vulnerable point. So even with the secure infrastructure like AWS keys, the fact of the matter is, how is it that you are storing it? How is it that you are sharing it with your people? So that's where solutions like password management come into the forefront in actually bridging in those gaps. I would see zero trust as the future. I mean, more and more businesses, as they embrace cloud, zero trust will certainly, it's something that it's like whether when you are embracing cloud, you are actually embracing zero trust, no matter how soon you come to terms with that fact. The fact of the matter is that businesses are today will take hybrid approach in their working, because from an employee engagement perspective, that has become a critical thing. Today, you cannot say that the work happens in the office boundaries and you have to work in the defined office perimeter. And I need not be working from home. I could be working from a cafe. I could be working from any remote location. So given these things, I think zero trust is the future, has to be embraced. And the stepping stone for that is the least number of credentials you actually key in, and more of identity based authentication that you do. That's the key towards zero trust. So that's what I feel.